Welcome to This Commerce Life. We are an unscripted podcast dedicated to small businesses and entrepreneurs in the retail and consumer packaged goods space in Canada and the United States.
I am Phil Chang, co-host and co-founder.
And I'm Kenny Vanucci, co-host and co-founder of This Commerce Life.
Our love is the journey to retail, and our passion is sharing that with you every week.
Video on.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing, Phil?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing really well.
Excellent. Nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Have our paths ever crossed? I'm trying to.
No, I don't think so. I've definitely I know of you guys, and then who do I know? So bad at names.
JP?
I know JP. That's
Yeah.
who I know. Because I know JP from the Danone days. He was coming in doing work for Danone, and I was leaving. I was the Walmart key account manager for Danone back then. So yeah.
I just found that out this morning when I was driving in. JP said to me, "Oh, so I heard you doing a podcast this morning," and I said, "Yeah." And I mentioned your two names, and he's like, "Phil Chang." He's like, "Oh, I've worked with him at Danone." So
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Morning, Ken.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Another day.
Looks
like the weather's holding out for the short term here.
Where are you based? You look like you're in my neighborhoods.
No, I'm in the West.
Okay.
And so we're in Campbell Heights, so it's kind of South Surrey area.
Okay.
So it's a relatively new kind of industrial area.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks a lot different than when we moved in.
Actually, it's quite new in a sense. There's a lot of new warehousing that's gone up out there, like a lot in that area. Holy shit!
Yeah. It looks a lot different than it used to.
Yeah, you guys were, even from the last time I think I was out there. I think behind you all looks.
Yeah, it was all barren land. It was open land.
Jesus.
That all looks like because we have a lot more land out here, and so warehousing out here, like in Toronto, looks almost every block looks like that.
Yeah.
When you get out near the airport and kind of like North Mississauga, it all looks like that. So
absolutely.
Wow.
It's looking good though. How's things?
Yeah, things are great. I can't complain. It's another year, obviously almost finished, and
almost done.
It feels like they just started. I know it's very cliche to say where does time go, but it literally feels that way almost every year we start.
It does, right? I mean, I don't know how it happens. I mean, it'd be New Year, and then the next thing I know, we're talking Christmas, and thinking, okay, well, I'm not too sure what the hell happened in the middle of all that, but
Yeah.
Anyway, we're back to another one. To another one.
Yeah.
It's been one of those years too, right? Like we maybe the back half feels like it moved even faster because dare I say, we're starting to get back to some semblance of order. I won't say normal because I don't think there is such a thing as normal, but but we're starting to get a sense of order maybe. Because everything's actually opening up. We don't seem to be facing the same sort of dangers of closing again or any of that stuff. So
at least that part's over.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the most interesting years I've been through in ever, probably, in terms of supply.
We've said that probably every year in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
This year's been just, I've never seen a year with and we'll get into this hopefully in the conversations, but costs and supply chain issues, like just an absolute shit show.
Yeah, the volatility,
really,
right?
It's just insane.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the hell. But that's why you're on, to give us some insights, young man, to see what between those 2 years, what's going on in the kitchen.
Yes, exactly.
So this is cool. Kenny, you want to do an intro?
Yeah, so I'll do something. So we have Kyle Leslie on, who's the president and owner, or one of the owners of Star Marketing, which is an interesting distribution company in the Lower Mainland. Carries some mainstream, but then some organic, some natural, some niche-y, some not so niche-y. It's so a little bit of everything. A really cool portfolio. I've known Kyle for well, it's got to be, I don't know, between 10 and 15 years, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. I would guess it's somewhere in there. I did a lot of business with when I was with LD. We're doing some business now in the new place. I like these guys because I like the fact that, well, they're nice guys. First off, they do a good job. It's good work. They carry just, it's the product selection I think is pretty interesting, and the uniqueness of a lot of the products I like. So for you today, young man, really, it's your 45 minutes to an hour. What I'd love to know is where you came from, why you do this. I mean, we feel like I have to ask everybody because I don't know why anybody wants to be CPG and retail. And yeah, we all do. We do it, and we do
a bunch of crazy nuts.
I don't know what's the matter with us, but that's a whole. That's a different podcast probably.
Yeah.
But I'd love to know where you came from, why you do this, how you got into it. And I think more importantly, especially from your side, because we do have a lot of brands that listen, we do have retailers that listen, we do have and consumers is, what are you thinking? Where do you see 2023, 2024 going? What have been some of the challenges this past year? Trials, tribulations, just everyday stuff. Tell us what you want. Don't tell us what you don't want. It's your 45 to an hour. We won't drag anything out of it. It'll make you look more terrible than you might already anyway. So it's really, the damage is yours to be done, my friend.
Wow. Okay. That's great. Obviously, first and foremost, thank you very much for having me on. I guess maybe I'll start with a little bit of history and kind of how I got to here. Way back in my early days when I was going to school, I was actually a bag boy at Save On Foods. So I was bagging groceries at Save On Foods while I was going to school. And I think I was 2 weeks away from graduation, and I was working a closing shift in the lunchroom, and there was no newspapers or anything in there to read. And I was just bored, so I grabbed the postings off of the wall. And my thought at that time was not to kind of continue a career within grocery, i.e. at the store level, but I just grabbed the postings because there was, again, nothing to read in the coffee room. So I started going through it. It's produce manager in the cusp, and deli manager here, this and that. And then I see advertising assistant. I was taking marketing at BCIT at the time. So I see a posting for advertising assistant, looking at the qualifications, and I'm like, wow, got it. And then it says, please submit your resume by date X, and date X was 2 weeks earlier than the day I was reading this. So I was like, God, did I miss out on this? Yeah. So went home, tidied up the resume, came into work the next day, and had my manager fax the resume into the office. And they called the store that day and asked for me. And they said they got my resume. So they've already done a lot of interviews, but they hadn't actually finalized the position yet, and was wondering if I could come in the next day. So I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So went in the next day, and they basically offered me the job pretty much right there on the spot when I finished. So felt good. I was a couple weeks away from graduation and already had a job lined up. So
not bad.
So I went to their head office in the marketing department. So in the beginning, I was in charge of photography and purchasing all the photography. So we would deal with different photographers, just get all the the proper images for the flyers. And then a couple years into that, we decided to invest in our own photo studio, and they offered me a position of photographer. I didn't have an idea of how to be a photographer. I'd never had a background, and here they are giving this kid a $50,000 digital camera back and Hasselblad cameras. And I had
nice
no
shit,
idea.
buddy.
Yeah, great stuff. And I know I'd be the envy of a lot of photographers. And I had no idea I didn't know how to do Photoshop, any of that. But they just knew that, well, you know what we look for, and just kind of learn on the job. So that's what I did. So I ended up doing that for another couple of years. And then around 2002, I ended up getting a job at Pepsi. And so went to Pepsi as a kind of a territory sales manager. So they just changed their process where you were a salesperson, but you also merchandised. So you had less stores, but you had to actually put the products out on the shelf. So as much as I was a salesperson, I didn't really feel like a salesperson. I'm wearing steel-toed boots, and I'm pulling out 2,000-pound pallets of pop out onto the floor and working it to the shelf. And
that's a lot of work, man.
It is. I'd see the Frito-Lay guy next to me laughing when he's throwing the light bags of chips to the shelf, and here I am.
Even that's a lot of work. That's still hard.
Yes, it is.
Merchandising's a bitch.
No, it is. And so, it was great, obviously learning a different side of the business.
Good experience.
But again, I only lasted 6 months at Pepsi. Just, again, didn't enjoy it very much. And I left from there to go to Sunrise. So I was at Sunripe, and that's maybe where we kind of first met at one point, Kenny,
Right.
with LD. I don't know if I actually called on you, but just would have obviously seen you in the office and stuff at that time. But yeah, so it was with Sunripe. I guess that was in 2002 as well, and kind of started off with junior accounts, and then just kind of worked my way up. And it was, I guess I was, when I left there, I was the Western Regional Accounts Manager. I was managing Costco nationally, managing the Overweight Food Group business, and then a few people that managed some of the other regional accounts. So I was enjoying it. I was having a lot of fun. But one fateful day, I was backing into my driveway at home on a Friday afternoon, and we had the worst cell service ever in our area. And backing into my driveway, my phone actually rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I was just shocked that my phone actually rang. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna answer this. Typically, I wouldn't answer it and recognize the number, but it happened to be Randy Gaudette of Star Marketing,
Right.
and so I had met Randy, once or twice at a golf tournament. I didn't know what Star Marketing was, what a distributor was, what a broker was. I didn't know any of that. I'd always been on on the manufacturer side or the retailer side. And so he started, chatting with me and kind of letting me know what they were thinking. And at that time, there was 4 partners. Jerry at the time, who was the president, was in his 60s and was looking to retire. The other partners, Randy, Dennis, and Kevin, were all kind of in their. Dennis was in his 60s as well. Kevin and Randy in their 50s, and they were just looking for some succession to kind of move along and ensure the business can kind of have sustainability later. So I basically said, look, I'm not really looking for another job to just come over and be a key account manager or whatever it may be. And they said, no, we'd be looking to offer you a little bit more and offer you some equity.
So why did they call you though, Kyle? Like, how did that?
Yeah. How does that tie?
I guess Randy said, and it's funny. He says that he liked the way I carried myself when he had met me the handful of times. So, and I think one of the times he met me was at a QF golf tournament, and I think we, if anybody's participated in a QF golf tournament before, there's you have a lot of fun and there's a lot of cheer happening. And he said he liked the way I carried myself and just wanted to obviously meet further and see what I could kind of bring to the table. So
I understand that though. I'll give you one pat on the back before you go into your story. So when people ask, like as I do, that I do recommend you guys when people, and I'll tell you what it is. I know exactly what Randy's saying because that's typically how I describe you, to be honest with you. So like even when when Mark was going to talk to you guys from Nuts to You, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? I said you'll really like them. A lot of it stems because you'll like Kyle because he carries himself really well. I'm serious. It's almost verbatim what Randy would have said.
Yeah,
it's bizarre, but it's true. Take the pat. You don't get those often.
There we go. No, I appreciate that.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I went in and met with them and kind of met the other partners and thought, what, this is interesting. These guys that at this time, I guess the business would have been about 33 years in the making, so it wasn't a new company. They had no listings in Ontario East. We had one SKU listed at Loblaw, nothing at Walmart. So I just felt, there's obviously a ton of opportunity here. And so I said to my wife, I said, look, 35, let's give this a go. If it doesn't pan out, a couple years in, I learned a new side of the business, still going to be, say, quote unquote, young enough that probably still saleable, and we could move on. And, right. I bring up that story of my phone and the service in my driveway a lot, just because it's a transformational point in my life.
Serendipitous, right? It just happens, right?
Yeah, it just it may seem small, but just like why did the phone?
Why ring? That day?
Why that day did I have proper service and it didn't cut out once or anything? But yeah, so I mean that was 2010. I joined Star Marketing, and I haven't looked back once, and I don't regret one decision to make the move. I have fun every single day at work, which not a lot of people get to say. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Don't look back. Maybe don't look back. You bought in. Shit.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, look, we can start looking back, man. Like you're in, man. You're
Oh crap.
Yes, yeah.
Too late for looking back.
Yeah.
No, and that's, I think, opportunities of that nature definitely don't come.
Yeah,
they don't come around very often.
No, not when they're that quality, right? When it's a solid business, it was well run. I mean, yeah, I mean, it was well run even back then.
Yeah,
right?
no, I give, like, John, JP, and I, we kind of say, what Randy, Dennis, Jerry, Kevin, what they did, we couldn't have done. Like they talk about running for their lives and just the the sweat equity that they had to put in to build up a reputation to get it to where it was. Yeah, it was a lot of hard work and a lot of lean years. And they've got some pretty funny stories about just being dead ass broke, as they put it. But they enjoyed it as well, and lots of ups and downs. And they look at where it's gone to today. They never envisioned that it would get to the place it is, and they're obviously extremely proud of what they started and then brought on, and continue to grow and do what we do.
That's awesome.
That's very cool.
There you go.
It's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have any kind of most memorable transition moments? Like, what were there any surprising moments kind of moving from what you were doing before to being in the business?
Well, I think when you come from a manufacturer and you're I'll use Sunrep as an example. When we started doing, whenever you had promotions, it was the retailer made 25, 35 margin. When it was on deal, they could be giving it away, and then I came over here, and our products are 40 to 45% margin, or 50 at regular price, and 30 on in-store. And I'm like, oh, they can't do that. But then you kind of realize in a hurry, you're like, you know what? We're extremely important to the whole infrastructure of the grocery. Like, they actually make money off.
Someone needs to make money on something.
Somebody needs to make money, and it's just having a different mindset. That obviously you don't need to give products away, and that's the space we want to be in. I mean, we never want to play in a commodity. If we play in a commodity space, we're taking away what we bring to the table. We strip it out because now it's just all about price and not the service that we bring. So I think just having a different mindset of positioning it a little bit different on the value that our products and brands bring to the retailers is nice. And back when you worked at a tier one manufacturer, you got a listing at an account. It was obviously you're happy, but it was almost like it was going to happen regardless, because it was Sunrise, Coke, wherever you worked. Whereas here, when we get a listing, it's like we really had to work for that listing. We really had to show the value and why this makes sense to.
Well, you had to sell it, right?
Yeah,
like you don't sell Coke and Pepsi, really. What are you going to do? You're going to carry a pop. You're going to have to carry one of the two.
Yeah.
Like it's not like you have a lot of you don't really have a lot of choice. You're going to carry milk while you're with Saputo. I mean, yes, there's alternatives, but really, come on, the game is the game. But your side, I don't have to carry Mazzetta. I don't have to carry, some of the other brands. Like I've got other alternatives, but I do like the fact I can make as a retailer, because I got enough products in the 15, 20 that aren't, they don't pay the bills. I mean, you need stuff that blends up so that we can balance out somewhere where we can cover overhead and just function. I know the perception is that it's big money, but it's tight margins out there, man.
I always laugh about that. Like like my alma mater is J&J, or we were talking as this episode was opening. One of the other partners, JP, and I worked at Danone together, and those are phone calls where you place a phone call, you get a phone call back, right? Because you are, you're number ones, or you're very, very big. And so retailers, whether they like you or not, they're going to talk to you all the time. And then I always get calls from, ex-J&Jers who go, I'm not getting, I've moved to another brand, and now the buyer doesn't call me back, right? Like, or he might call me back and be really, really rude when I want a meeting, right? Like, and I go, yeah, because you don't get in on the strength of the brand anymore. Now you gotta work at it, right? Like now you gotta be of value, or the buyer.
Well, you got to give me a reason, because if your brand doesn't even rank, like it's a niche play, or it's kind of cool, like what do I give a shit? You got to tell me, like, why am I dealing with you? Like what do you do for me? Like what do I get out of you? Like what do I get? out of this lovely little relationship.
Yeah, that's one of the, we're obviously very proud of the team we've built as well. And when we're selling ourselves to a potential new manufacturer, we're going through our corporate profile. One of the slides we kind of lay out some of our team, and I always talk about some of the background. So myself, obviously working at Save On Foods, at Pepsi, at Sunripe. John, our business partner him and I met at Pepsi and Sunripe. JP with Danone, Paul with McCain, Kurt with Coca-Cola, Justin with Save On Foods, Kevin with Smuckers, Costa. Like there's a lot of tier one manufacturer background and experience, and Phil, you have that as well. And when you go, and we always say we take our learnings from our previous lives and we apply it to our distributorship here, and it's proven to be very successful. And when you position yourself and prepare for a meeting the same way you would selling a 2-liter bottle of Coca-Cola or a little jar of artichoke hearts, prepare in the same fashion, and it sets you up for success. And that's kind of the values that we've kind of stayed with, and it seems to work really well. So we're not looking to deviate at all.
But I understand what you're saying, Kyle, but it does make it definitely, when you're with Sunripe, right, and you're coming in, you're probably going to get a meeting because there's Sunripe, there's Ocean Spray, maybe Oasis was or wasn't at the time, and then you had the Knutsons and things like that, sort of some higher end. But you're probably going to get in, but you're phoning on Mazetta peppers, right, which are really good peppers, and it's a pretty line. But those, I don't have to pick up, man.
Absolutely.
So it is like, so how do you like? I'm always curious because I know so many of you guys in this space.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember how, like, I probably picked up a lot of the calls from you guys because I think I liked the niche. I liked I liked the margin, and I liked the fun stuff, but I don't know. I mean, what are buyers like out there? That we're not going to pick on buyers, but I'm trying to understand, like, how do you do it? Like, because it's a tough call. It's a tough to get a meeting.
Yeah, it is, and we talk about relationships, and especially in the West where we've started, we've got strong relationships, be it from our current roles dealing with the different buyers or our previous roles dealing with the buyers, and we always talk about it takes a long time to build up a strong relationship where that buyer trusts you and knows that you're bringing them value, you're not wasting their time, and I think because of that is why a buyer will take our call, take a meeting, listen to us, because we've got it buttoned down. We're going to go in, we're going to have the proper costing structure, a proper promotional schedule, show, where it, belongs in the store, what could possibly be pulled out to make space for it. We're not just coming in and saying, hey, this product tastes great, list it. Like we do the due diligence, take the analytics. We've got a lot of IRI data that we do get from our retailer partners that we're using on a daily basis. And, we really pride ourselves in being a very analytically driven company. And yeah, it proves to do, really well. And so, in Eastern Canada, maybe to almost jump back a little, Phil, you talked about, a transformational point within, the company in the space here. Yeah. And it was in 2016, like I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons I came over here was there was no listings in Ontario East. One listing at Loblaw, nothing at Walmart. So tons of opportunity. So we got a couple of listings in Sobeys, Ontario, and we were dabbling from the West managing it. And we continually had our brands that we represented in the West, had different representation in the East, always say to us, when are you going to come East? When are you going to come East? We love what you do in the West. We'd love an alternative in the East. We'd love you to set up.
And you said those people in the East are crazy. You don't want to come.
Why would I want to do that
there? And you are not wrong.
I love it here.
Yeah, not going to happen.
But yeah, so we said, we need to make an investment and make sure that we're, relative, today, but relative tomorrow and next year, 10 years and 20 years. And so we made the commitment of saying, okay, we appreciate our original distributor, but we want to make sure that, we can control our fate long term, and we need to make this investment and truly try to become a national distributor. So, that's when we did bring on JP, and at that time we were like, hey, we don't want to just find somebody out there, hire them, find out, 2 years later it wasn't working and it wasn't maybe our brands per se that were the issue, but it was the person
right.
that was selling it. And it would be very easy to, be on the golf course every day and just say, yeah, I was knocking on doors, but, nothing. So we knew we had to make, a more significant investment. And so, that's where, JP came in, and became an owner as well. And, he worked at Danone for, I think it was 16, 17 years.
Hundreds of years.
Yeah.
In yogurt years, that's hundreds of years,
yogurt
right?
Years,
in fresh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was 2016. And I remember, and he'll always laugh at this too, when we first started, I said to him, there's going to be some days where you're going to be like, God, I don't know what to do. We've made the presentations, we're, waiting to hear back, this and that. And he still jokes, he goes, Kyle, I'm still waiting for that day where I don't have anything to do. So
that's a good feeling, buddy.
It's a great feeling.
That's a good feeling.
Yeah. Our East business, when I started in 2010, again, the business was 33 years old. Well, our East business here 6 years later is already larger than what our business was when I started 10 years ago. So, we've had a really, accelerated rate of growth out there. It's provided us opportunity now where, in the past, maybe a manufacturer moved their business from us because we were just regional to a national distributor because they were either forced or they just wanted less complexity.
Right.
So that was another reason why we wanted to make this move. Is we wanted to control our fate, dictate our fate versus, Sobeys is one point now of contact, so we need to have one provider. So we said, again, let's make this investment and let's bring people out there. Take the values and the morals and everything that we've built in the West and bring it out East. And obviously just start a distribution company, without some financial backing is pretty much impossible. So we've got the long enough years in the West here to be able to make it happen. And yeah, we haven't, again, looked back and had a lot of fun and continue to grow. We just finished our planning meetings and, we look at 2023 and we like where it's forecasted.
Good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exciting. Really exciting. And what a great portfolio.
It is. It's some really cool product lines.
Yeah.
Let me. So because again, it's more of an audience issue, or not issue, an audience makeup is. There's obviously a pretty substantive differences between two sides of the country, the East and the West. Like, what are some, let's say, significant differences between dealing with the Ontario market versus the BC market? Like, I'm assuming from your guys' perspective, from you, John, and Kurt on this side, who are from this side, now having to deal with what JP's having to deal with. And the reason I ask it this way, Kyle, is again, not trade secret wise, is more like as a brand coming to you potentially. Maybe I'm either really strong in the East and I want to come West, or go West, find the West and go East. Like, what am I up for? What am I up against?
Yeah, well, they obviously are very different. I mean, myself personally, I don't call on those accounts, so I don't see the challenges, say right there in that office. Right. But we somewhat take, I don't want to say take things for granted in the West, but because we've been entrenched and people know our name, things can happen a little easier where we can get those meetings. We can, if you go to any store and you talk to people at the store level and ask about the different reps that come in, I feel confident that they would say extremely positive things about Star Marketing. And when we first started breaking into the East, they didn't know who we were, and they might think that we were a new startup, which obviously to them maybe we were, but we're not. And every year doubling business, and now the base, like I said, is larger than what our West business was. That I think we've now proven ourselves in so many different accounts that, look, we're not this fly-by-night new company that isn't going to be able to support and service the account at the levels that they need, which I can appreciate. A new truck at your back door creates complexities and,
absolutely,
and time and money for the retailer. So if they're going to open up, that back door for our trucks to come in, they need to know and have the confidence that we're going to, service them properly, bring them the right brands, and just, again, treat them right. And I think now, 6 years in, we've done a great job at that, and we've definitely have retailers that now are recommending us as when a brand does come to a retailer. Whereas a handful of years ago, we would have never guessed that we would be a potentially chosen provider from a retailer when
Right.
a new brand comes to them and they say, well, you need a distributor. And they're like, well, who do you recommend? Now we're on that list of one of the recommendations. So, we always got that in the West, and now we're getting that in the East as well. So it is nice. I think it's happened a lot faster than I anticipated it would. And that just is because of the markets being so different. But I think just, the brands that we have that are unique enough, we've got about 55, 57 brands, depending on the time of year coming and going. Right. And of those brands, about maybe 38 to plus of those are nationally exclusive to Star Marketing.
Right.
And that was one of the other things that we wanted to ensure that, that helps us get a foot in the door. If, we've got a brand that they can't get from anybody else, that obviously opens up, the complexity on their end to set us up as a new vendor.
Right.
There's some really, I mean, I look at the brands and
there's
I
good
guess
brands,
they're great brands,
they're
but I just see like so many different ways to kind of come at retailers, if you will.
You got diversity, like you can actually play in a bunch of pockets.
I mean, you've got some,
good, right?
A bit of a headliner in gluten-free bars on there that probably gets a bunch of doors open for you. But then you've also got like things that nobody realizes they need until they need it, like a Nong Shim, right? Like from the noodle side of things, right? And all of a sudden, like, those open very different doors for you, but it kind of like cracks open so you can talk about a much bigger portfolio of things that you can bring, right? And again, then Remedy, I feel like I see everywhere.
Well, yeah, that's
right now.
That's a big one,
right? Yeah. Like Remedy seems to be, literally everywhere.
yeah, and that was, and I know I listened to Alan on your guys' podcast when he talked about coming into our boardroom and meeting with John, myself, and at that time. Kombucha, they were, the number 4 player to the market, which isn't easy to kind of penetrate. But obviously we know Alan, we like Alan. Enough points of difference with Remedy that we said, let's give this a go here. And we've done extremely well with it. And it's a fun brand, and we define ourselves as a natural specialty organic distributor. So we don't, I don't want to say pigeonhole, but we don't just put ourselves in just organic or just natural or just specialty. At the end of the day, most of our brands and our products definitely are better for you and, feel comfortable, feeding to our families. But they, again, they're a little higher end, some niche, but it's, they can command a good retail. We try our best not to represent brands that would be direct competitors of one another. That's kind of another value that we've had. So, we've, Mazetta example, we would never take on another, olive or pepper company to pass the sauce, just because Mazetta has those. That's instead of putting us in a situation where we might have to make a tough decision for space on a shelf and punt out one of ours to make room for another one of our brands, we just say, let's eliminate that chance for conflict and just represent one brand and put all of our focus and energy behind that brand to be a leader in said category.
Right. One thing you just finished talking about a couple minutes ago is like when selecting a brand, like you've got 38 plus that are exclusive to you.
Yeah.
Is exclusivity, I mean, obviously I would assume exclusivity, especially in a distributor's world, would be something that you'd love to have, because you don't need, you go into a door and then Horizon 15 minutes later, and then UNFI 20 minutes later, then Tree 25 minutes later. Right. And on any given Sunday, I don't know what price, you got 4 guys come in at 6 prices.
Yeah.
Like that's not necessarily fun. So is exclusivity something you are really, again, more for brand help? So if there's brands listening, so, I mean, there's a reason why as a brand, having 6 distributors across the country may not be the worst idea. Mm-hmm. And then there's many times of the brand, really, you should just hunker down with one really good one. Mm-hmm. So it depends, and maybe let them do the sub distribution option if they have relationships or trade-offs. But when you're looking, what is, like, if I'm a brand listening, what are the things, if I'm coming to you, that is going to make you say, I think, we should sit and talk?
Yeah, it's obviously one of the boxes that, we want to check off.
Right.
Is it a deal breaker? No. I mean, there's, a lot of times a brand will ask us, these questions, and it's almost exclusive to the scenario, that's in front of you on what you look for. But because we are, the size we are now, we are national, we can, be a lot more choosy on which brands we do want to partner with. And at the end of the day, we kind of always make the comment that we want to work with good people. We
Right.
spend way too many waking hours at work to work with assholes, and
You're right.
So
No, you're right.
I'd rather work with good people. And one of our good friends, Paul Marshall, his comment that he says that we kind of follow the same kind of mandate is follow the people, not the brands. And it's a good model. Working with good people make a lot of sense. So, the idea of having multiple different distributors in play, there's value to that. And then, like you said, Kenny, that there could be some hindrance to it. I mean, if there's 3-4 other players involved, it's obviously a little more difficult for that distributor to try to get super excited about putting a lot of it, especially if you're pioneering a brand.
Exactly.
I mean, pioneering a brand is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, and it's obviously there's no guarantee that it's gonna be successful. So if you're pioneering a brand and you're sharing it with multiple different distributors, you can spend all this time and work and energy to build it up to get to a level, and then all of a sudden maybe distributor X comes in, undercuts you by 5 cents, and then you potentially could lose the business.
Right. So
almost from the get-go, maybe you're not as invested in the brand because of what potentially could happen later.
Right.
Nuts to You, for example, they went the other way. When we first talked to them, 6 years ago, they had a lot of different distributors in play, pretty much everyone. And what they found was they weren't getting enough attention from each, because I think maybe just a piece of pie for each of them wasn't maybe large enough to give the kind of energy. So they consolidated a lot of their mainstream business down to us, and boom, we started showing a lot of growth and putting energy behind their brand and focusing in on their brand. And Ann Lawrence, the sales manager, she one of the things she likes best about us is I actually answer the phone when she calls. Like something as simple as answering the phone.
Imagine that, eh?
And she says all the time how it's a challenge, out there of getting a response and getting somebody to pick up a phone. And we always say, what, we'll continue to do that because that's very easy to do. And if the others aren't doing that, and we are, great.
Is that Mark Sterling's?
Yeah.
Mark Sterling works at. So you don't need to answer Mark's calls. Just tell him that Phil and Kenny said, "Nah."
I wouldn't do it.
No, okay, so I'll look for the call display now.
Yeah.
If it says Mark,
sorry, Mark Sterling.
Whatever. It's not that important. Plus, he'll drive you crazy to talk. And,
he will.
It's just not going to go anywhere. Just let it go.
When he's listening to this, I know he's already screaming at his radio. But just calm down, Mark.
Relax.
Kyle will call you back someday. Don't worry about it.
It's all good.
That's funny.
But I guess that's one thing, Kyle. I think it is important. I think there could be rationale why you might have a few distributors, and maybe even in a region, like you might have an East and West, because someone may be strong in East, someone may be strong. I get that. You may have someone really good in conventional and your other partner in natural. But I think brands do have to be cognizant that it is difficult when you start. I mean, just do it for yourself. I mean, if you're doing something at home and you really like the project, you'll spend time on the project.
Yeah.
Right. When you have 50 to choose from, you'll pick the one you like the best. So if I know that my brand, if it's not important for you to marry to one sort of person, how important do you think it's going to be for the distributor and or broker or whatever level we're talking? It doesn't have to be specifically a distributor, even a broker. I mean, it's hard for people to get that excited when,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's hard. I mean, the time is time. It takes a lot of effort to sell shit these days.
But I think too, the other thing for brands, like if you're gonna spend all this time, like the beginning part of it, we laughed about it, right? But you go from a tier 1 company where you pick up the phone, you call a buyer. If you don't get them right away, you get a phone call back, right? You get responses. And so if you're a brand that's trying to break into a category, what I'm talking about is you can make 18 phone calls and never get anyone call you back, right? No. Because you just don't rank. So like breaking up distribution, there are some good things in there, but then like breaking up representation is a bad thing, right? Is you sometimes what you need someone like what you guys have got, where you've got a breadth of products, you understand how to talk to buyers, you have relationships, and that is sometimes
what gives me odds as a brand, right? At least I've got a chance to get in.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're not going to get in, then most probably aren't going to get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because your odds are going to be pretty high. Like I mean, I know you well enough. I know you guys can get things done in the West for sure, because that's where I'm from, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll speak to the East if you want, but I can't, because I really don't know what you do in the East. But I could definitely know in the West, you'll get a buyer. I know you will.
Yeah.
So it's not bad odds to have you do this. I would get it, right? And there's others, right? I mean,
you
it's always the
also,
same, but
you
you
also
can do
get
this.
value talking to Kyle, right? Like, so you talk to
Well,
Kyle,
don't
you
make
get
we
your...
already gave him one compliment. Like, don't,
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, I
Okay.
didn't. You gave him a
Oh,
compliment.
okay, sorry, okay.
I you know, I
I thought
just
it was
met
just like a
Kyle, so he
podcast thing.
seems like
Okay,
a
that's
really
fine.
nice guy. But so, but like the benefit of talking to a guy like Kyle is now, if you're new to this, you've made 100 phone calls, you've had no buyers call you back. A guy like Kyle would probably say to you, "Listen, you there's probably some really great potential around the brand, but is that your opening line, really? Like, there's
Yeah,
a
are you
reason
wondering why?
there's a reason why they're not calling you back. Like,
Yeah,
if
let
you
me help
pitch
you
it
with
the
this one.
way, yeah, if you pitch it
Yeah.
the way you would at the farmer's market, you should probably stay at the farmer's market, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's a great
Yeah.
place for you, right? So, yeah,
It's funny you
kinda
say
like...
the farmers market. You know, we get a lot of brands coming our way or being
Yeah.
recommended to us or just reach out to us, and they'll come in and they can have a really great product and they're doing really well at a farmer's market or some
Yeah.
local independents, but they want to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And we've all been in this industry long enough, and it's not easy and it's not cheap.
No.
And sometimes you look at this mom and pop company, and Randy's kind of coined the phrase bathtub brew, because that's where they're
Yeah.
making it.
Yeah.
And you tell them, look, you know what, you've carved out a nice space right now with what you're doing. Stay there.
Yeah.
Because if you want to burn your money fast, you can come into retail, or you can just throw your cash on the front yard and light it on fire, because it might be the same.
It's about the same thing.
speed. Yeah,
It can be. It really can be. You're right, though. I mean, yeah, you can flush it down the toilet and it's the same return.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just one you actually can see it right away. The other one's just a slow bleed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
I do not think most of them understand how big the golf is, right? Like,
No, they don't.
you can't, you go into farmers markets and you think, like, if you think that you went into a farmers market and you got the margins right because you're starting to put some pennies back in your pocket, you should definitely stay at the farmers market, right? Like, like a couple of pennies of profit does not make you just can't. Like, there's
even if
so
they double,
many...
even if they double up.
No, I know.
And most
well,
if they
you
double up sounds great.
you double it
gotta
again,
go 4
and
times,
you
baby.
double it again, you're about in the right spot.
At 4 times, you can probably do retail.
Maybe.
Right? We always tell this.
Maybe.
If you make it for $1, you sell it for 4. And
well,
people,
except
wow,
then you can't have money. Kyle. You can only have JP, right? So sorry, like,
or half a JP, right? Hopefully the better half. I don't know, whatever the bad.
I'm making all sorts of enemies in the East here now. I've made fun of Mark. Now I've made fun of JP. It's great.
That's good.
Yeah, a recent brand that we just took on, Yeshi, which is a nutritional yeast salad dressing. And, it was born on Vancouver Island, and Paul and Barb, great couple, just made this recipe, and just fantastic product. And it's one of those rare examples of a brand that was small and local, and the amount that we're selling of it is amazing. And we're now bringing it east, which it's not a layup because of how well it does out here, but it is one of those brands that when you put it in your mouth and try it, it's just fantastic. And so it's exciting to see companies like that truly did kind of break through and are having some success at that space. So it's definitely not impossible, but they're the rare breed that.
But they obviously had it priced properly, right? Because again, I think what most people do is what they don't understand is the amount of layers that you have once you hit our world. Mm-hmm. If the retailer requires 30 or 40, and if your distributor requires 22 to 40, I don't care what the number is, and your broker needs 3 to 10, and then the terms are 2, and then there's the damages are 2, and I wake up in the morning, retailer listing fee is 6, and co-op is 15. Well, you can't double, guys. You double and you owe people money.
Mm-hmm. Yes, no, absolutely.
Right? You got to go 3 or 4 times because it just won't work. And I don't think people really appreciate how hard it is to get from A to literally to the consumer at the end. It's a fucking long trek with a lot of shit in the middle. Like it's really a bitch, right? It's a lot of work.
Yeah, no, absolutely it is. Yeah, so when they do position it right and have it costed right, and that's one of the the processes when we are talking to a new brand is ensure that they don't go too thin too early, because you're going to need that money later. We're talking about a company right now out of Ontario and trying to get the costing right for not today but for tomorrow, and as we assume what will happen, which is gain more national mainstream grocers, there's going to be more costs associated with that, and there's going to be marketing vehicles, i.e. shippers, i.e. whatever it may be, that just as much as you can make this work now, paying yourself doing a farmer's market, make sure that we're positioned right to be able to take this and scale it up. I mean, obviously you still need to have a retailer that a consumer is willing to take away,
right.
But you know what? Let the retailer or the consumer dictate if they want to pay X for products.
Right.
Why.
Right.
Well, that's very exciting.
Good for you.
Very, very exciting. What does no trade secrets? What does next year look like? Are you excited about next year?
Yeah. How are you feeling about what's coming?
Yeah.
Another rate increase the other day. All fun stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, that I'm hoping that freight's obviously been a huge cost component of our what we do, incoming and outgoing, and so hopefully that starts to relax a little bit. We are seeing some softening depending on where it's coming from in the world, but it's such a huge overall component of our costing structure that can eat into margins very, very quickly, and you can't pass through those costs as quick as they come to you. So they need to relax a little bit. Obviously, foreign exchange is another huge component that is outside of our control, that ebbs and flows and adjusts our costing. But when COVID hit, March of 2020, I feel that our world got flipped upside down, and it was obviously something that none of us have ever seen in our lifetime, on how quickly things went crazy. And we in our company here, we kind of took the position of us salespeople that deal with our brands, deal with our retailers. All of a sudden, we weren't busy because our brands didn't want to talk to us because they were dealing with their own domestic challenges, and then our retailers didn't want to talk to us because they're just trying to make sure that they had product out on their stores to be able to sell to consumers. So our field sales staff out in the field were swamped. Our accounting department, our customer service, our warehouse, everybody was swamped. But some of the people that managed the accounts and the brands weren't busy. So we said, you know what? We don't want to introduce new people into our ecosystem here, because at that time, you sneezed on somebody and they died. You didn't know, right?
Well, exactly.
There was no playbook for this. So we said, you know what? We're going to separate ourselves into two groups, kind of an A and a B, just so if one did go down, the other one could still operate. But we went and got steel-toed boots, and we were in the back picking orders. And, it gave us a new appreciation for our business, for sure. But it also, like, our staff looked at us and saw, John and myself, owners of the company out there with steel-toed boots picking orders, and the other kind of senior sales guys doing the same thing, where I think the other staff kind of had this newfound appreciation for us, because, we're not above going and picking some orders and doing that. And it was necessary. And I know, Mark McCurdy at Georgia Made called me and just thanked me, because we were, one of the DSD providers for their stores that really stepped up and ensured that they had product to sell to the consumers. And just, he was just, didn't take it for granted at all. Really appreciate the level of effort that we could do to ensure that we got product to their stores. But like most people within grocery, we grew very nicely in 2020, and you thought, how are you going to anniversary that in 2021? And we did. We were like, wow, like, this is like, when does this stop? Like this, we got to see a drop off. And here we are, 2022, slated to show growth again. And so it's I think that's a testament of our people, our brands, what we've built, because it's not just new business that has come in that is providing the growth. It's brands that we've had for 30 years that are still showing growth. So it's just, again, we positioned ourselves in a nice spot where we've got a manageable amount of brands that, the bottom third or the top third, we can give them, equal time and be entrepreneurial for all of those brands. And that's why we don't want to take on too many brands. The more balls you have in the air, you know that one's going to drop.
Right.
And if you keep it at a manageable level, we always say work smarter, not harder, and do more with less. And that's kind of what we've been able to do. So 2022, I foresee us to continue to do what we've done for 45 years previous, and show and have another good year. We've got some great brands. Our East business continues to grow. We've got a lot of blue sky opportunities that those hit. It can be really nice chunks of business, and we're and still having fun, which I think is probably huge. One of the most important things, because when you're having fun and laughing at work and it doesn't feel like work, you're in a good spot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Agree
Good for
with
you,
that.
buddy boy. Good for you.
Mm-hmm. Kyle, thanks for coming on. This has been amazing.
That was relatively painless, right?
Relatively, yes. No,
yeah.
I appreciate both your time. Phil, great meeting you.
I'm sure great meeting you too.
We'll see you at an in-person event at some point.
For sure. Kyle, if people want to be able to find you or the company, where do they go and do that?
You can go to our website, starmarketingcanada.com. Obviously, reach out to me on LinkedIn. But yeah, should be easily obtainable to be able to connect with us. And yeah, we're always open to talk to new brands. You never know what that brand will be. We know where we came from, so we never just flat out say
you never know.
No, we don't. We're not going to talk to you. Like we will always listen to somebody, because you never know what it's going to be. And if we do say no, we say no with grace and let them know why we're saying no. And
you might actually learn something. You guys at least you'll give them a little pointers on the way out. So
absolutely, it's amazing how people can appreciate you saying no up front, because you only one chance to make a first impression. And if we're not in the spot where we feel we can do right with your brand, it just doesn't make sense for us to sign up with them. And we know if we're going to take on a brand, you're going to get our energy and our attention, and it should be set up for success.
As it should be.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Kyle.
Okay, young man.
Amazing.
That's it. You're a stand-up guy. I'm glad you came on. I really do appreciate it. So you go have a nice day. It looks like we actually might maybe.
Some sunshine. Well, some sunshine is popping up behind me. So
yeah, listen, but you're out in South Surrey. That's a whole different one. I'm in East Van Manders. She still hasn't come out yet.
Listen, if you have amazing brands of yours that you want on the show,
absolutely,
throw them our way.
You know what? I think that would be great.
If there's stories that you think would be told, if it's a cool, like the Yeshi story, I mean something like that, because you know what it is. We like local. I mean, we like local. I mean, for me, locals like here, Canada's local. Like I like.
We love these stories, right? So, right? I mean, so if you see some country, and you want to throw them our way, throw them our way, and we'll talk to them. We'll look after
absolutely.
them.
Well, I know
love to talk to them.
A handful of brands right off the top of my head that I know would lend itself really well to this platform, and it'd be great to hear their story.
Awesome,
very cool.
Thanks, Kyle.
Okay, young man, go to your day. I'll see you next week at lunch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Enjoy your holidays. Take care, man.
Bye.
Bye.
Bill, hang on.
Yeah.
Cool. He's a good guy. He's a stand-up guy. Like he really is. I mean, it's they do good work. They do good things. And again, it's just, when we've had so many distributors on the show, it shows you though, like there's value in many of these companies. They just provide good service, and it'll help you hopefully get to the next level.
Yeah. No, it's cool.
Very cool.
It's very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that.